Today, we are going to be talking about blood sugar. And I think that blood sugar has become possibly one of the most polarizing topics in the way that it is either oversimplified or it is just way overhyped. And on one side, I feel like you have women being told, blood sugar doesn't really matter unless they're diabetic. And on the other side, you have women being taught to fear every single carb, every piece of fruit, or every rise in glucose, like their body is quite literally one bite away from disaster. And the truth is that most women do not need more fear. They need better understanding because blood sugar does matter, not in a fear-based CGM obsessive kind of way, but for long-term health, for body composition, and certainly in how you feel day to day, your energy, your cravings, your mood, your hunger, your ability to train well, your ability to lose fat without feeling like you're constantly fighting yourself. And especially after 40, this conversation matters even more because physiology changes, right? Muscle matters more, recovery matters more, meal composition matters more. And I eat healthy is not the same thing as I eat in a way that supports stable energy and body composition, which is exactly what I want to talk to you guys about today. So to start this off, what I think what I want to say is that eating healthy is not always the same as physiologically helpful. And what I mean by that is that a lot of women think that they are eating well because technically the food is healthy. However, they're not eating in a structure, I should say, that supports satiety, that supports stable energy or physique goals. Oatmeal for breakfast, acai bowl for lunch, granola, fruit, a salad, gluten-free crackers, yogurt, a protein bar, a handful of this, a little bit of that, a few bites of ice cream after dinner, a glass of wine here or there. And I'm not saying that any of those foods are inherently bad. I am saying that healthy on paper does not automatically mean healthy or helpful in practice. Because if your meals are skimpy, or if they're light on protein, or if they're low in staying power, or if they're built mostly around quick carbs or too random and snacky to really anchor you, you might technically be eating clean, but still setting yourself up for energy dips, for cravings, for irritability, and for constant hunger. A pile of quality ingredients does not automatically make a solid meal, just like having good intentions does not automatically create good structure. And this is why this conversation matters so much because body composition is not just influenced by what you eat, but how those meals are built, how your body responds, and what those meals make easier or harder for you later in the day. So let's talk about what unstable blood sugar feels like in real life. So when blood sugar is unstable, it doesn't always show up as some dramatic medical event. Like sometimes it's a lot more subtle. Maybe you feel okay after breakfast, then you crash mid-morning. You need caffeine to recover, or you get shaky, foggy, or irritable if you go too long without eating, or you want something sweet after meals, or you feel tired after lunch, or you're starving at 4 p.m. even though you have been good all day. You start prowling the kitchen at night because your appetite finally catches up to you. If any of this sounds familiar to you, this is blood sugar instability in action. And women often interpret these things as personality flaws. Okay. They think to themselves, this is a lack of discipline. This is emotional eating. This is food cravings. This is bad willpower. And what I'm trying to say is sometimes that's not what's happening at all. Sometimes the issue is simply that the way you are eating throughout the day is not creating enough stability. You're on a roller coaster. And if your energy keeps doing roller coaster loops all day, it's really, really hard to make wise choices from that seat. And this is why stable blood sugar matters. It doesn't just influence your labs, it influences your behavior. And it sure as heck influences fat loss, right? Blood sugar instability makes fat loss harder, not because one imperfect meal ruins everything, but because unstable energy and unstable appetite make consistency harder. When your meals don't keep you full, when you are constantly crashing, when cravings keep kicking up, when energy is dipping and rebounding all day, it becomes harder to eat appropriately. It becomes harder to train well, recover well, and stay out of the cycle of undereating early and overeating later. Like fat loss is not just about whether a calorie deficit exists on paper. It's also about whether your physiology and your habits make that deficit livable. Like if the way you are eating keeps making you tired or snacky or moody or ravenous or dependent on caffeine or sugar, that's not a supportive setup for body composition. Think of it this way. You can have good ingredients and still have a badly run kitchen. Okay. And after 40, this conversation matters more because the margin gets smaller. The cold, hard truth is you can get away with more when you are younger. Okay. Like there's no workaround for that, guys. Physiologically, younger women just have more metabolic buffer. They have better insulin sensitivity, more resilient recovery capacity, and in many cases, a little more room for poor habits before those habits show up as obvious body composition problems. Over time, though, aging in and of itself is associated with changes in body composition and insulin sensitivity. And the menopause transition adds another layer. Okay, now we have declining estrogen, which is associated with greater abdominal fat accumulation, higher insulin resistance risk, and accelerated losses in muscle mass and strength. So that means the same pattern of random eating, low protein, high stress, and inconsistent training that your younger body may have tolerated now all of a sudden starts to create more visible consequences as you enter your 40s and in your 50s, and especially through perimenopause and beyond. I'm sorry, those old ways are going to start to show their cracks. Muscle matters more now. Muscle is one of the main places in the body, or excuse me, one of the main places that the body disposes of glucose. So when women enter midlife with low muscle mass or low muscle strength, blood sugar control and body composition often become less forgiving. Now, this does not mean your body turned against you. It means precision matters more now, not obsessive precision, but mature precision, the kind that asks, is this meal, is what's in front of me and what I'm about to eat actually helping me? Is the way that I eat on a daily basis supporting my energy, my satiety, my training, and my body composition? Or am I just calling it healthy because it sounds clean? Because the food label says high protein or gluten free. Okay. Which leads me into the part of this conversation that I really want women to understand, which is that eating healthy is not enough if you are not eating in a way that supports stable energy and body composition. A lot of women are eating foods that would absolutely qualify as being healthy, but the overall pattern of their eating, their rhythm throughout the day is not working for them. A smoothie with fruit and almond milk might be healthy. A bowl of oatmeal and a banana might be healthy. A salad with no protein might be healthy. But everything I just listed will leave you hungry, crashing, craving, and underfed. Okay, this is where the body composition conversation has to grow up. We have to stop evaluating meals only by whether they sound clean, are low calorie, organic, gluten-free, dairy-free, socially approved, etc. We need to ask, does this meal anchor me? Does this meal satisfy me? Does this meal support my muscle? Does it keep my energy steady? Does it help me eat like a self-controlled adult? Or does it leave me grazing in the kitchen, excuse me, like an unstable teenager? A meal can look good on Instagram and be a terrible employee in your body. The best meal is not the prettiest one, and it's not always the cleanest one. It's the one that does the job. That said, this is not a call for anyone listening to think that they need to become obsessive. The blood sugar conversation, excuse me, can get weird. And I don't want to make this neurotic. You don't need to fear fruit. You don't need to panic over every glucose rise. And you certainly do not need to wear a continuous glucose monitor just because the internet made it look spiritual. The goal is not to flatten your blood sugar into some perfectly straight line. The goal is to reduce the unnecessary chaos and to learn to eat in a way that gives you steadier energy, better satiety, fewer crashes, and a body that is easier to manage. Because again, the answer is not fear. It is maturity and structure and learning what your body responds well to and building around that with wisdom. Okay. So, what do you actually do with this? First, I'm going to literally give you tangible action steps and a blueprint. First, you want to build all of your meals around protein. Protein, protein, not because protein is trendy, because protein is having a moment, and I think that it's wonderful, but because protein gives meals staying power. A lot of women build meals around carbs first and then just kind of sprinkle protein in as an afterthought, or they eat peanut butter and call it a protein, or they say, well, I had a hard boiled egg. So, protein goal met. Look, protein leads the meal. Okay. Protein should probably be the biggest portion at your meal. 4 to 6 ounces, not 4 to 6 bites, not a hard boiled egg, not edamame, not hummus, not peanut butter. 4 to 6 ounces of highly bioavailable protein. When protein leads the meal, everything else just tends to organize itself better. You are more likely to stay full. You are more likely to preserve your muscle, and you are way less likely to end up scavenging for energy an hour later. So step number 1, protein is the star. You start with protein when you put a meal together and you need 4 to 6 ounces. Second, stop eating in a way that creates random energy swings. If your day looks like coffee, snack, tiny lunch, another snack, ravenous by evening, raiding the kitchen while cooking dinner, needing sugar after dinner, this is a setup problem. Okay? Girl, you're not undisciplined, and this is not willpower. You are literally eating in a way that's dysregulating yourself. You've got to bring more structure to your meals. A lot of women are not actually eating too much all day long. They're eating too little in a scattered, unsatisfying way, and then they're paying for it later with cravings, fatigue, and evening hunger that feels impossible to manage. So they wind up overeating later on. Okay. More structure means fewer decisions, better appetite regulation, and a much calmer nervous system around food. So what I'm quite literally saying is you need to eat regular, predictable meals on a regular, predictable schedule. Okay. Like breakfast should be within the same hour every day. I'm just throwing numbers out there, but get up, eat breakfast between I don't know, whatever time you get up, 6 to 7 a.m. 3 hours later, eat again in another 1 hour window. 3 hours later, eat again in a 1 hour window, right? Regular, predictable meals on a regular, predictable schedule. Third, pair carbohydrates wisely instead of fearing them. You do not need to avoid eating carbs, but carbs land better when they're paired with protein, fat, fiber, and an actual meal instead of eaten in isolation. Carbs are not the enemy here, but chaos is. So fruit, for example, by itself, let's say you have an apple for a snack. That is going to hit your body very differently than an apple paired with Greek yogurt or eggs. Toast by itself may not hold you, but toast with an egg white veggie scramble and berries is an entirely different experience in your body. The point is not to make carbs smaller and smaller until you are scared of them. It is to eat carbs with friends, never in isolation. Okay. So no carbs alone. Carbs go with buddies. Like women pee in pairs when we go to the bathroom, your carbs get consumed in pairs. That carb needs to come with a friend, protein, and maybe, possibly, also a good idea, some fat. Fourth tip. Get very honest with yourself about which healthy meals are not helping you. Okay. If a certain breakfast leaves you starving 2 hours later, It is not doing its job for you. I think women stay stuck here because they judge meals by how clean they sound on paper instead of how well they work in practice. So a smoothie could be healthy, oatmeal could be healthy, a salad could be healthy. Again, I think I used these examples earlier, but if that meal is leaving you tired, hungry, cranky, or reaching for snacks all afternoon, then for you, it's not a supportive choice. So instead of thinking, is this healthy? Ask yourself, is this helpful? Does this hold me? Fifth, build muscle, please and thank you. This is a blood sugar conversation and a body composition conversation. The more muscle you have, the better your body will be at handling nutrients. Strength training matters so much more beyond like just how you look. If you are under muscled, blood sugar swings are going to feel more dramatic. Body composition is going to feel harder to change, and you will have less metabolic buffer overall. So, this is not just about what is on your plate. It is also about what kind of body you are building over time. You don't need to train like a bodybuilder, but you do need to stop treating strength training like it's optional. Tip number 6, watch for the patterns, not perfection. You are not trying to eat flawlessly, whatever that even means, okay? You're trying to notice which meals create steadier energy, calmer appetite, and better follow through. That's the real skill. Not obsessing over every bite, but learning your own patterns. Which breakfasts keep me grounded? What lunches make me sleepy? What meals leave me satisfied versus like chasing snacks an hour later? That kind of awareness is way more important and way more useful than rigid food rules because it's teaching you how to work with your body instead of constantly fighting it. And again, most importantly, stop asking only, is this healthy? And start asking, is this helpful? Does this help me feel and function better? So, as I wrap up this episode, the blood sugar conversation women over 40 actually need is not really about fear, restriction, or chasing perfect numbers. It's about learning to eat in a way that gives your body stability. Okay. Because when energy is steadier, appetite is calmer. When appetite is calmer, choices get easier. When choices get easier, consistency improves. And guys, when consistency improves, duh, body composition improves, right? The whole thing becomes a lot less mysterious. So you don't need to obsess, but you do need to pay attention because eating healthy is not always enough. The question is whether the way you are eating is actually helping your body do its job. Hope that this episode was healthy. I appreciate you guys joining me, and I will catch you all in the next one. I'm a board certified health coach and an FDNP, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, not a licensed medical doctor. The contents of this podcast should not be taken as medical advice or medical nutritional prescription. Any information I share is for encouraging and educational purposes only. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease, nor is it intended to replace the advice of the appropriate medical professional.